Okay, we're going to call the meeting back into order. We're going to get back to our agenda here, working on the work plan for the year, and give it back to Gord for the tripart work plan.
All right. This is for the recording. I have to explain that the work planning we're doing for today and tomorrow, we're dealing with the tripartite work plan that Canada and BC signed with the GTS, and that it in 2018 and 2019 it implemented the GTS government. And then the second work plan is the reconciliation, and that's the GTS internal work plan with GTS. And the third one we're doing tomorrow is the nation rebuilding work plan. So it's good that we're mentioning that. Now Calvin is all caught up to date. We had a round table this morning. Our chairperson, Brenton, opened the meeting and explained what it is we're doing. And each of you are all directors. And to introduce the communications here, I'm just saying this for the recording, and whatever Peter gets to use, like this part, he'll edit it, eh? And my big smile for the camera, he'll probably edit that too. So introducing here, Peter is from Los Angeles. He's a retired film man. He worked in the film industry all his life. He's a well-respected film man. He's worked with the Sea Shepherd Society throughout the world. And if you see Whale Wars, you'll see him on Whale Wars on TV. He's usually operating the ship and dealing with protecting the whales down in the Arctic. And working with Peter is Savannah. Who's your mom, Savannah?
My mom, Karina.
Karina.
Karina Wilson. Oh.
Kim and Karina. So that's their daughter, Savannah. And she's here working with Peter. All right, to get into this, you'll see the tripartite work plan. It's A1, A2, A3, A4, A5. There's 5 pages to it. We'll start off with the goals. Implement GTS governance. We'll change that word to government. Objective was to develop a tripartite work plan, beginning with 8 chiefs in the GETS and 8 in the Gigani. And we'll rely on GFA 1995. That's the GTS Framework Agreement in 1995, where the federal recognition of Indigenous rights and determination discussions and provincial commitment to true reconciliation. That's in 1995 that happened. And responsible for that are the negotiation teams of GTS, Canada, and BC. So we've done that. That was signed last February. And the functions controlled by GTS government, such as regulating individuals, and that you see the goals. The objective: protect the individual GTS rights and have an entity for technical entities to report to. So the idea is GTS government has been implemented. And then the idea is to have entities like GWA, Skin and Fish Commission, to make reports, so they'll have an entity to make a report to. And they have a lot of good information and a lot of good recommendations that never get implemented because they don't really have an entity that they can have to authorize implementing it. And that people responsible are the GTS negotiating team and the head chiefs. And you'll see what has happened in the past. We have the GTS and Gigani, and they are stepping up. So we've got a lot of this done. The fourth one is implement UNDRIP. UNDRIP is no real important vehicle for us. As Brian has indicated many times, when you read UNDRIP, it really explains who you are as an indigenous structure. You're the indigenous government. You have indigenous laws. We call it Ayok, Samogan, Will. So you'll see all of that. We have it. So UNDRIP is just for the government to start to focus on it. And that's what has been happening in 2018. And so we're really looking at the idea of the how it's going to affect the Peter, you're making me nervous. That's the first time I've dumped coffee in this room in a long time. Thank you.
Double R on the room for that.
Yeah. Okay. So what we're going to do is show the map. Show the map of the river. We come down.
They'll never make the Hollywood once you're nervous.
Yeah. So what we have here is the Skeena River, and we have an act along in the river. The dots, I'm just putting them anywhere, they're not really focused except this one. And here's the Bulkley. So how it affects 91 and 92 of the Constitution, your jurisdiction. So that's what's happening now. And you look at the work plan. We have to figure out how to put that in there. So we have to protect the balance of the provincial government, 92, and the federal government, 91. With our Ayok, they enact the fish tenure. Okay? And that is the focus that Brian indicated, that the chiefs are doing that alone. So are there any questions up to this point? Okay, 91 you have DFO. And 92 you have permits. And these people deal with the salmon. And these people deal with basically the industry. So when they get a permit, they can go anywhere they want on the river. But you can't. You can only fish in here and act. You can't go to someone else. And also, there's the fee simple. That stops you from going to some of your fishing sites. So what we're doing is we're meeting with the province now. We have set up the crisis management. The crisis management team and what they're going to do is meet with the province and meet with DFO on the 21st. And they're gonna set up an administrative team or an administrative tribunal.
Is that February 21st, Gordon?
Yeah. The Gets have appointed Norman Moore and Robin Alexander. Gigani have appointed Bobby Campbell and Art Wilson. It was funny, we had a meeting with them. They went to Terrace and they were supposed to invite the people from Kitsilas and Kitsimkalem and the other First Nations to send a representative to the crisis management team on the 21st. They did pretty good. I told the kids that they needed a little bit of work in what they done, because I suggested they got sidetracked when we were dealing with fish fences. And then we met with the Gigani last night, and I told them that when they made their report, they talked about the fish fences too, because they like to talk about the exciting thing. So I told them they failed, and Bobby was pretty upset with me, and Art took it okay. So Bobby, I expect he'll be coming in to see me, straighten me out. The idea is to set up administrative tribunal because in here, here's the Kidlingar River, and then there's a fish fence. It's the only fence on our territory. So the idea of a tribunal is to protect the individual right of the Amsiwa. Okay?
Why?
Because they're not allowed to trespass here. There's no trespassing to anyone with permits on the Gigsan fishery. All right? And that went public in 2018. And then in the fall of 2018, they closed 2019 to wreck fish. So the provincial government is sending Paddy Hirschfeld. Doug Donaldson appointed him to attend this crisis management team. And we're trying to get the guy named Colin out of Rupert for DFO. So the idea is to look at an administrative tribunal. Because when you look at the individual right of a person, there's 3 areas that are protected for him or her. Administrative tribunal, administrative law it's called, constitutional law, and criminal law. So now we got a new one, Ayok. So the person that's packing that permit, are his rights being affected by the closure to recreational fish? So that's the idea of jurisdiction. So that's a pure discussion of jurisdiction. Brian and I in Vancouver, we indicated this to Joe Wild from Canada and the province, the deputy minister from the province, or representative. I really didn't get what he was, did you? Yeah, he wasn't very good anyway. And the feds had about 6 people, and the province had about 6 people. And we talked about this particular thing. So remember, up here, they're giving us till April. They're giving us till April, and then you see you could deal with what are the contents of rights and title, and then the jurisdiction. So we put it to them. We don't have to develop this by April, because we got it. It's there. And we're dealing with it. We're setting up a team. And if if they don't join the team to deal with this situation, their own fault. It's what they always do to us. If we don't show up, they just go ahead. So as far as we know, there's no fishing in 2020. There's definitely no wreck fishing in 2019. So that's what's jurisdiction. So we got to figure out, is this concurrent or is it competing? Concurrent jurisdiction means that these will prevail, or paramount. One has to be paramount in concurrent jurisdiction. If it's competing, that means then there's a GTS, an act. So if there's competing, that's where you have, is this going to be a war party or a peace party? You have to figure that out. Is it a war party or a peace party? And the tribunal, oh, go ahead.
You say discussions about war party. That's a very difficult point of view in regards to how we're going to infiltrate our jurisdiction. And I do know that in the past, the concept of having First Nations, having rocks thrown at them. The question is, how are we going to handle the situation when those rocks get thrown again? Are we going to protect them? That's the only question I was going to ask about that one, because that's one of the important ones that we're dealing with jurisdiction with the Euro-Canadians. And I'm not too sure if they're educated enough to understand the jurisdiction rights of the Gitxsan Nation. We have the LNG happening, and there will be more Euro-Canadians coming up this way to do their fishing. I was wondering whether the hereditary chiefs may have put a motion to put monitoring facilities up in the mouth of all the rivers that feed into the Skeena River. That would be one of the best ways to keep a very close eye on it. But it's just my opinion.
I was really interested when you're saying concurrent jurisdiction, so that's provincial and federal, right? And you're talking about individual rights, and also the competing, which you said was the ayok. So in all of this, where does the stocks that are totally limited, where does climate change come into this? Like, are people remembering that? Like, there's outside forces that are more tantamount to the limitation of the stocks themselves, which are outside in the oceans, and also climate change and the effects on the water. So is that being considered in all of these, who owns what and whose individual rights are being trampled? Is that paramount in all of this?
We have the ANAT. We have that already. So we don't have to establish this. The other groups in BC, they have to figure it out. We think the Channel, the West Coast people, may have a hereditary system. Okay? So you bite off what you can chew. We're establishing our jurisdiction. We're not going into the content yet. Should we have a fence or not? Are we looking at stocks? Because we have GWA, we have Skeena Fish Commission, they're all dealing with stocks. And they all fight with each other on their opinions and their scientists. So we don't want to get into that fight yet. We have to establish this jurisdiction. All right? So we have till April. And the government says they're going to put it into legislation. So we have to get our jurisdiction established. We have it established. We're expanding it. I don't know the word for it yet. Go ahead.
I'm just wondering, I understand the technical part in terms of the fence and stocks and involving GWA and Skeena Fisheries Commission after, but are they involved right now? Because they've been, like GWA, their board is hereditary chiefs and part of that system. So are we including some of them to ensure that we're consistent in the messaging on how it's being governed?
Yeah,
So they're involved
yeah.
in this crisis management?
Sadie Harris is on the Gigani, and Rod's on the Getz, and Alvin has not showed up yet. There are 3 directors on there.
But are they part of the committee then? Right.
They're part of the government. They're part of this government with this jurisdiction.
I'm just wondering if we should have them on the crisis management committee one, at least so we have someone there in terms of the technical and can report back, or just for consistency.
Yeah, they had opportunity, and they appointed, Sadie's group appointed Art Wilson and Bobby Campbell. And then Roddy's group appointed Norman Moore and Robin.
So the, okay. I'm just wondering where the proportionate, because not everybody is involved in those, the Gitsan governance yet either, right?
Yeah.
The list of chiefs.
If you look at D3, that's the terms of reference that you guys have seen. D3. That's the crisis management team terms of reference. It sets out how it's going to work. And then you look at D4, and it says engage technical entities such as Gitsan. Sorry, Cece.
No, I'm just letting her know it's a pink tab.
Okay.
Sorry.
So D4 sets out that this management team here, it's still in the throes of being established, all right? We got the province, we got the Gitsan. I think it's a blue tab. It's D, D3, and D4. So this is all going into the work plan. Okay, you got a D3 and D4, and you look down at the fish plan on D4, and it says engage technical entities such as Gitsan Watershed Authority, Skeena Fisheries Commission, Gitanyao Fisheries Authority. We already got a commitment of the Gitanyao. They're sending Biost. He'll be attending on behalf of Gitanyao on the crisis management team. So as we get established, and then we'll be inviting the technical people, because a lot of the issues regarding stocks and fences and all that stuff, you'll have to be aware of that. But the whole idea is this, is the fishery tenure. That has to be expanded into sections 91 and 92 of the Constitution. Right now it's not in there. So that's the goal. That's your goal. And we'll put that into the work plan. And you'll see the process. All the questions that you have are really covered in the fish plan itself. That's D1, D2, D3, and D4.
It's just the first time I'm seeing this. I'm not sure if you guys were catch up when you're.
Yeah, we've given it to the board since November.
No.
Yeah, look at your material. We're recording you anyway.
Yeah, well, now we're aware of it. I wasn't aware of this crisis
Well, that's good.
committee on fish.
Now you're
So-
aware of it. That's good. But when you say you're not, then we get defensive, and I apologize for that,
Yeah.
because we've done our due diligence. Anyway, so a lot of your answers are in those documents there on setting this up. But remember, keep your eye on the ball. It's the tenure that the chiefs are responsible for. Okay? The stocks, whether it's up or down, we have all these scientists. DFO scientists, GWA scientists, Skin and Fish Commission scientists. They got 2 or 3 entities in Rupert, too, that deal with it. So we have a lot of information. And they all cover climate change. And those are all opinions, and you want to hear them fight. You bring up one little issue at a meeting and you'll have 3 or 4 technicians jump up and all argue. And they're like us. They stick to their opinion. So you see, that's where we're going with that. So we're sticking that into the work plan. Go ahead.
Is our opinion better than theirs?
Not opinion that's without fact is just an opinion. Okay? So you have the fact of an act, the fact that there's no trespassing, and the fact that it's self-policing. All right? So it's exciting. We're ready for April. And we presented that to the government. So that's what we're going to stick into the work plan on jurisdiction. And that's the only issue we're talking about on jurisdiction. We might add La Hip to it in the fall. But it takes time. You see how long we're dealing with this? We still got to keep our eye on the ball. We keep wavering. We keep moving off the ball. Our senior team lost by 2 baskets in overtime. They took their eye off the ball. Okay, so that's what we're doing there. And you see it says number 4, implement UNDRIP. Include Kicksand government in the constitutional powers 91, 92, and 35. So that's how we're doing it. We're including this jurisdiction or an act into 91 and 92 of the Constitution. And Brian and I are meeting in Vancouver, and we're really pushing to have this put into legislation. And it's an uphill battle because we got the other groups that are Indian Act, and they don't have this yet. And we get kind of pushed aside. So we really got to push hard. We need you. We need your strength behind us. And this stuff here will be getting out into YouTube and stuff. So take some of their pictures too, Peter.
We're working on it. You're in the process of what we're doing in your board. Are we going to get a chance to pull in Stuart Phillip and those other leaders? Talk to them?
We do, here. The First Nation Summit and Union of BC Indian Chiefs, they're all banned.
Yeah.
So
Bring them up over here and we'll talk to them.
Yeah. So we're having a joint dinner with Against Giganti on the 19th. We're invite Eddie John to come speak. And he'll speak about this sort of stuff. March.
Meeting? Oh, that's when our board meeting is, huh?
Yeah.
Of March?
March.
Oh, March. So when are you meeting with them? March?
Yeah.
March, not February. Okay.
Okay.
March 14th is the.
Not too sure.
So you see number 9? It's dispute.
So
Sorry.
can you repeat that date and what's happening on March 19th?
That's just for the Geds and Giganti government. We don't have to worry about it at this time.
Oh, okay.
But you guys will hear about it.
And we're welcome to attend as the board, right?
Well, I don't know, it's just the government. Both governments. Geds and Giganti, about 38 of them. Okay, number 9, dispute resolution. Establish Aboriginal Rights Appeal Board, ARAB. Establish terms of reference for economical workable rights and title. Gitxsan government watershed entities, Gitxsan teams of Gitxsan and BC, or negotiation teams of Gitxsan and BC. So the dispute resolution, right here, Simgiget, Administrative Tribunal. So what do we name it? Aboriginal Rights Access Board, so we could keep it at ARAB. Whatever you guys suggest here, whatever you guys suggest for this, and I'll put it to the team on February 21st. So you see number 9, we're moving along with our work plan. It's exciting. And for Canada, you'll see what they've started to implement this. They've started this, and they gave us till April. We've got 2 working groups in Vancouver. So you'll see Canada is implementing that into Section 91. And what the Gitxsan government is doing is filling the gap, protecting the individual rights of the Gitxsan. No one else is. Protecting the Anak. That's what the government is doing. And we're keeping our eye on the ball. We can wander off into all these other areas. We'll forget about this. So we can't forget about this. Keep your eye on the ball. BC is the same thing. They're taking part in this jurisdiction discussion. So they're doing the same thing to implement it into the Constitution. So we'll be putting all that in to the work plan, because we actually show progress, 8 milestones. We have this and that is what we're seeking to be put into legislation by April. Not by April, but the government will start writing it up. Go ahead. Right from Legate Creek, right towards Smithers. I don't know that name of that creek there. This is about the river. And then the Babine River goes to Babine Lake. There's the boundary there. Then up north we have the Taltan and the Upper Skeena. And this is Kishpios River. And this is the Kidwingaw River. So all of this here is closed to recreational fishery this summer. Simgalugum, Siwa, you always say, no, don't say that. We've got to be nice. It's self-policing. So the whole idea of the crisis management team is to get this idea of self-policing. When they respect the law, and they'll understand the law, and they'll be self-policing. It's going to be hard with some of the people that are pretty mean, and some of our people are pretty mean too. Go ahead, Colin.
Inboard boats for these checking the rivers all the time. Remember, Art Lauren had a 454 inboard, and we come up the river from Doreen all the way to Kiringa. So we need boats for the Laskiks to go on the Canada, just ask. We'll station where we need to focus on where they're coming in.
Yes.
I have just one question, Gord. Why are we divided, Gitxsan and Gigeni?
Just to start it, we've covered this already, but you've missed that part.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been discussing this since September of 2017. The idea is to get started. So we have the Gimlitwood, we have 60. Whenever we try to deal with anything in the Gimlitwood, there's too many people, eh? So we had to start with group. And we eventually get up to 62. Okay? And the people say, oh, we're left out, yeah. But we have to do something. So we asked back then in September, how were we going to do it? This was one suggestion. But we never got any other suggestion. So it seems to be working. Because they're focusing now, on this. All the other issues, they seem to have accepted along on other situations. So this is what they appear to be doing. And then with the gets, and I'm looking around the room really quick, some don't have the hip, and some don't have an app. Okay? And that's a real power struggle with the chiefs. And then with the Gigantic, like Delgamook, go ahead.
Gigantic, my question is how much monitoring will they be getting in comparison to Gates? Because I have been spending time up in Gigantic last summer and I saw a lot of poachers in there. Not few, there was quite a few, quite a bit.
So you watch the guts, where are you in the gut? You're somewhere near the Babine, eh? Somewhere. So the gut, I learned a little bit of Gigsat. Nem die tjouwen wachten, dat licks will. So if somebody, we don't bark in somebody else's house. You don't bark into somebody else's house. So if Lutke Geos isn't monitoring his fishing hole, just look at us. Okay? So we got to speak about our own and act. And that's the only way this is going to work. Because it's an excuse. If Nigep says, oh, Saka Bigok is not looking after their NAT. So he doesn't have to do it. We don't want that to happen. So your jurisdiction is on your own NAT. If there's poachers there, then you deal with it. There might be some arrangement with the other fishing hole. Maybe they're married. Something might have happened there. Like me, I'm here at this fishing hole because of love. So if they see me there, if you're sticking your nose in somebody else's business, chase me out of there, there'll be huge embarrassment to everybody. So that's why we have to be careful. Are there really poachers there? Maybe there's some reason. And that's what we're going to talk about here. That's a good point, Victor, because we talk about here about how we do self-policing. It's exciting that whatever you bring up, our Ayok covers it. It's all there. We have it all way before April. We got it all.
I think with our dad, he used to be in Gitskukli. Yeah, he passed away. So now for us to get fish, now we have to go through his chief, get permission to continue our fishing in that area. And the thing is, we have to go through that protocol before we even step foot on in their fishing ground. And so when we lost Patty and Elmer and everybody, it was like we're just going down the line. And I think now we go to Ricky and Gary Hill. I think that's the traditional way.
Oh yeah.
When your father passes, you have no rights on that fishing hole or territory anymore. And even though your father's gone, you still have to, especially for a year, until you die. You don't just stop because your dad dies. You continue on, and that is where our Guelphians comes in, and you all know each other, and who marries out, and they know that that person has a right on that territory because they married into the family. And that's why we have to know who our house members are and who they're married to. That's a lot of responsibility on the chief and his house members. That was one of the things I wanted to throw in there.
When we deal with trespassers in Ritchie, you watch out, we got a lawyer in the smokehouse up there.
Actually, we have two. Sean Lee is getting married too.
Yeah, so we have two lawyers down there.
We're protected.
They have to pay their dues, see, so we use them.
Maybe alone will.
Other time.
Nedi eksimligi belligites skis sigolus jagomdaus demen se jagomdaus kiadi walaxid win tzoqti it's samadi nedi eksimligi wislisti. You don't just push them away, you continue to take care of them. Only the wicked ones will push them away. But the ones with the heart that cares for the needs, and we carry on tradition of taking care. We
Okay, go to B. Go to B now. So I'm finished with this year. There's some people, some chiefs that aren't interested, like Delgamuuk, he's not interested. I think Nicodane is midway. Gwynedit is not interested. So that's what we're having. So we need you as GTS board of directors to talk it up, to tell them, come on, get there with your fellow chiefs. We need you to really explain that you're not leaving out anybody, that everybody should be included. So the guests are pretty well done. There's only maybe a couple chiefs. And then here we have a huge amount. So pretty soon they might be confident enough just to pull everybody in so that we're back to 62. All right? And they're not being left out because we have the watershed process. Delgamuuk doesn't take part here, but he takes part here. And we involve about 50 chiefs on the watershed. So no one's really being left out. These fellows here are dealing with the economic components of their wilt and lahip. So everybody's pretty well involved. And then you got GTS. Each of you represent your clans. So we got a lot of involvement.
Now with especially in the Gets, that they're still stuck in the Indian Act. A lot of them, especially those that aren't territory holders, like they don't have territory in the Gets, and they're a part of that group. So a lot of them get stuck in the Indian Act system, like the band system, and that's what they try to push. That's what they try to push with their groups. That's why I was really concerned that when the governance was started, that those chiefs were involved, because I thought the whole idea of Gitxsan governance was you had to have territory in the group that you were on. I wasn't paying attention to when we had started that, but I understand that they do have to have, like they do have to be in there and listen to what those that do have territory and see where they can fit in. You know, they do have to fit in, but they just have to learn to work with those that do have territory. Because I hear that a lot, and I see a lot of them like they're stuck in the Indian Act because they don't have territory. So it's hard for them to try to move forward and work with the chiefs that do have the territories and share their ideas and work with them to make them stronger. So that's my...
Yeah. So you see, that same thing goes, when you bring it to the rest of the province, a lot of these bands, they don't have a land tenure like we have. Okay? So they're really stuck with the Indian Act right here. So how do you develop their rights and title? This group. With our group, they all fit in. Go ahead, Cece.
Just to follow up on what Violet was saying, I think, and this is maybe we need to understand the court case a little bit more, because my understanding is there are names on the territories, but part of that is the chiefs agreed to have that person represent them because of just the vastness of the case, and it would have been challenging to have everybody to testify or put affidavits in. So my understanding is not necessarily that they govern all, it's we need to know the background in terms of that, and I think maybe that's what we need to share with them to strengthen. And it's not necessarily, a lot of them are just figureheads that were there because that was the person chosen at that time due to the skills and the expertise, or just how that hereditary chief carries themselves. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's there and set. And I think that's what I think it would be great to try and get the history behind some of that and to illustrate or to help them remember that or see what the intent was at the time. We're talking 20 years ago, and a lot has changed. So it's going back to that and seeing what is that history of that area and what did the chiefs and why did they agree to it. I'm sure it's documented somewhere.
There's 3 houses, I think, 3 houses that doesn't have Lachie. And I'd like to hear the history, just like what she said. I'd like to hear their history. We got challenged last summer, and I told them, I said, let's hear your history. And they wouldn't come up with their history. Do you guys know your history? Yeah, we do. Well, let's hear it. So without the history, we can't deal with anything. But you know, the reason why we honor each other is how they present themselves in the Wilpilili. Boy, those people that don't have Lachie, they're very strong in the Wilpilili. So we honor them, and they're on the table. They're not left out, but they don't have a Lachie, like you said. But I'd sure like to hear their history, their side of it. We know a little bit about our opposition, Lachie's opposition. We know a little bit about it, but I want to hear them confirm it. But they choose to go through trying to bully their way in without facing us in the feast hall. That's our protocol. If you don't agree with something, put up a feast, and they're gonna walk cite you if they know you're on the right track, or opposes you, love what that name. You know, that's where the feast system comes in. I told our opposition that, but I respect them whenever they have a feast. They're pretty strong. Those one that don't have Ladia. They're very strong. So I think it's really hard to deal with them. We even look after the people, Amshawas, and they come to the feast. I see a couple of them in Yao. Amshawas brought in. They're married into somebody's group, and then the God adopts them in, and they're very active in the feast hall, those Amshawas. But then we have people from next door neighbor. We buried about half a dozen of them so far, and yet after we buried their brother or their sister, they're back on the visitors table. I think the visitors table should put up a feast whenever somebody on their table.
Yeah.
That's what I think, because it really affects us, and the dollar especially. So I'm really bothered with that. You know, it bothers. Boy, we put in money and bury their brother or their sister, and they're back on the visitors table. They don't help us out whenever we have a feast. It's a very concerning situation. But I respect those 3 houses that you're talking about, because they put up a real strong feast whenever they have one.
I heard that when the court, like what they say, when the court case first started, they had a blanket map. But when is that blanket going to come off, so we can see underneath to see who actually owns the territories?
That's a question for me?
Well, yeah.
Okay, the map, like Cece indicated back then, was they had to come to some sort of an agreement about who's going to represent and who's going to be the witness. The witness in the court had to be someone that's credible, lives a good life. So they had to think about that. And then they had to think about who would be a good representative. So in the Lahip, you have one name on there. But you all know you're a dog. You all know there's different names in there. Like Bruce Johnson. When he had his name, it's all under Chokaslay. And then Bruce Johnson's brother, when you're going to Terrace, you're going to Smithers on the right side of the road just before Boulder Creek there, east, is where his name is connected. Ivan, I think his name is. So we all know that stuff. But this year is just, right now the government is using that and for consultation on the watershed process. But we all know whose territories are in there. So there's really no blanket on it, but just for the purpose of the court.
Terry, and then Deb.
I was just wondering about, like when they're talking about Indian Act and hereditary system. Some of our territories are, like ours for instance, is all populated, so we have to use the Indian Act to get somewhere in our negotiations with, for something, trying to get something, and then we're caught in the middle trying to accommodate both systems, and that's really hard on us because it's like our territories are on our territory now, and they're all populated. So how are we going to use the hereditary system when the government says there are reserves on your territory, and you have to deal with the Indian Act, or you have to come up with something like we're trying to do now to accommodate both. So that's a really tough thing for some of the houses, because of accommodating both federal and provincial governments. So I think that's something that really has to be looked at in this work plan.
Yeah, it's under number 4.
Is?
You didn't see it? Number 4. It's UNDRIP, and UNDRIP talks about redress,
Yeah.
and that's what Glenn talked about to the chiefs, the Getz and the Gigani. He talked to the Getz on Monday and to the Gigani last night, and he talked about redress, about population and fee simple taking over the territory, and territories that were logged out, the railroad, the highways, all of this stuff has to be looked at. Rather than building the SkyTrain in Vancouver, the province should be redressing the Gixan. Because definitely they have to redress what you've lost. It's another way of saying compensation to Nicodem. I think that's what he meant, I don't know.
Yeah. It's sort of a catch-22 position we're in, because we have to deal with both, and this one says this has to be in place, this one says this. They're not sitting down with us and talking about stuff. Just like the implementation of UNDRIP. You see, it's millions of dollars going off each and every territory, and I think that's what they're waiting for, till all the resources are gone off each territory. Then they'll start the implementation of the TRC and the everything like that, all the recommendations. They're not going to deal with those until the resources on our LHIP are depleted. So we've got to really start looking at implementing these ourselves.
And that's right here.
Yeah.
That's the watershed situation. Nicodem, you guys have done that. You're saying no trespassing.
Yeah.
You're doing it to a certain extent. And just like, I got a funny little story to tell you. When, the train wreck happened at Southdown, and Gixan Safety Services was involved, and Nicodem chased them out of there. So they all had a hard time accepting that. We're Gixan, how come we shouldn't be allowed to work in there? But it's Nicodem's jurisdiction. So you see, you guys do exercise a lot of your jurisdiction.
To a certain extent, yeah.
So a lot of it's being done here at the watersheds.
Okay.
They do pretty good. They do pretty good preventing the resources from leaving. They're pretty strong. They're doing all right. And then the government, the Gixan government is focused just on the enact. We're not dealing with disputes of names or anything. Once that's established, then you get to deal with the railway, the highways. The railway does a lot of damage to a lot of the fishing sites. And the fee simples do a lot of damage too, because they don't allow access.
I've been listening with a lot of interest about all the conversation that's been going around the table, and I just wanted to touch on a couple of things. One of them was the court case. A lot of us were involved at the very inception of it, and that had started already in Kispiox with the declaration in 1977. So the High Chief's knowledge and the people that were chosen for that, you know, it felt like, you know, the knowledge holders were under the gun, and the lawyers were, you know, pushing, and this was you know, the very first court case in Canada that ever happened to establish rights and title. And to my understanding is that there was a lot of unfinished business, that the maps weren't put back the way they were supposed to have been, because, you know, you talk a lot about dropping the ball. The ball was basically dropped for X number of years, and it wasn't put back the way it was. Every house group has these little enclaves of families that are have the stewardship of each Lahib within that major big territory. And I think this is what people don't understand, because the grooming of some of our people was either not finished or never started. And then there was, the inflection of the Indian Act with the bans. And so it became just a continuation of when you talk about intergenerational trauma, because I come from the health field, and this was intergenerational lack of knowledge that didn't transpire. And now we're as a collective group trying to reshape and rephrase all of those things. The hard things are really difficult to deal with because you don't have the historical background, like you talked about some WILPs that have been formulated, because you need to have some belonging somewhere. They're formed, they're there, they're part of us now, and even if they don't have Lahib, they're still part of the nation. And it was because of historical things like, for example, banishment. We had our own laws with regard to banishment, like depending on the offense. And so the history of the houses were never passed down. I was taught by Anquililbis, Mary Johnson, and Guisken, and I got most of my teachings from the West, and I'm so grateful for that. And of course from my great uncle and my great aunt Elsie Morrison and Peter Muldoe. And I never really got to know Dalgamuk that well, Albert Tate. So some of that business is still unfinished. So this is still a work in progress. We are not a stagnant society where we are totally, dig our heels in with, we got to believe this, and that's the only way, my way or the highway. It was never like that. People discussed things. They took however long it took to discuss those hard issues, and we don't do that now. So I would really, really like to see that happen, because there's a lot of trespass. I have trespass on my territory. Our people are very forgiving. We are very merciful people, because we only know that there's only a certain amount of time that we have on this earth to do good and not be closed about anything. That, God said, if you have ears, hear, if you have eyes, see. And I'm very hopeful with this whole process, Gordon and Lutkudzius. I'd really like to give you some honor here, along with Riet and all the team that make these things happen, and deal with some of the difficult things. And I realize, the fishery, it's our lifeblood. I mean, we are salmon people. So,
Nachni res. Denk je willen wel. Koksleeschool. Lach jip. Sneekapun die zijn uit. Het zijn nou niks. Niks gekeken met nak. Gaan die ons zijn uit. Lach jip. Zo ik wat gekeken. Dat wil toast. Net achter me dit. Wel, ze go. Wel, lach jip. Liks kijk boon zijn bek dit. Kort nog neon. Kort waard dit. Zak dit mocht die gaan ook dit wel. Chip. Dit zijn wel. Tem dacht ik. قد قادي نتنون جا نقني وون نديت أقدمتي ألقي اختيتها جا وون لتو ولا ويت هداو خم كان خيوكم ندين لايف تلتم ولا ويلت تقواد نستفوسته ولا ويت هداو خيوكم مثلنا اسنخني لا يسوعني ولا ويلت تقدير قاري ونخني الهيدس إذا مثلنتهم ستمدخ كدم هذه همزة وخاني لكم ونم قاون ونم يكتب كائد أمير طبيعي
Okay, communication. So what we got so far is we have Emily and Ruby, and we have Peter. You see that, I don't know if I made copies for you. Gee, I guess I didn't. There's they're putting together a document to put onto Facebook. It'll be the first one about the meeting February 7th and the meeting of the GTS. And it's all about this. It's just focused on this. And that. We're going to get the message out. Any suggestions how you want to see it done? These folks are wide open. And then you have this year with Peter doing the filming, and that will be, we want to streamline meetings like this live so that our people will see you doing your job. You won't ask what are they doing anymore. So they could pick up their cell phone and see you guys meeting, look in their computer. So I'm at the limit of the end of my knowledge of computers. Go ahead.
I remember when Ed Green and Aubrey Jackson, they were stopping cars along the highway here. I was wondering if we can bring that back again, like with management. They had uniforms on and pistols. Maybe bring that back.
Okay, that's enforcement.
Yeah, security.
We're going to deal with enforcement. We'll probably put that in the in D4. The fish plan and the blue tab. So people will probably bring that up. Because these guys that are coming in here with the permits, they're going to be chased away because they're going to want police protection. Because they got a right, they bought that permit. They're going to be after you while you're kicking them off to the river. So the idea of self-policing, and then at the other end of the scale is enforcement. See, the eventual process with the tribunal, and this is way in the future, is that there won't be need for going to the Supreme Court for an injunction and getting the police to enforce the injunction if there's ever this competing jurisdiction. So the idea of this in the future is to avoid all that stuff. So keep that in mind. About 2 years from now, we will be putting that into the plan. But right now, we're looking at just this DNN, okay, and the self-policing. So it's up to each of you, and then we can educate the Lixki get them get. If we educate them, they might join us with the self-policing. Communications. And whatever else you guys want to talk about.
I'm curious, we're doing our self-policing and all that stuff, they have permits. What's gonna happen if they come and burn down whatever we have on our lahip?
That's arson. That's
Yeah.
criminal.
Okay.
So we have to make sure we're at our territory. And it even happened way back, my grandfather, somebody burnt his cabin up in the lahip. So it's not unusual. So we have to just keep track of our assets.
Maybe it's a good idea to take pictures of their permits.
We'll get
Document who's coming on our lahip.
Gordon, I just wanted to mention one thing. I sent you an article from yesterday where the NDP government is putting into legislation the UNDRIP for the first time with regards to Indigenous rights and title. And it's, I think in Parliament, it is already passed. I don't remember what yeah.
Yeah, the province wants to do that.
Yes,
wanna be the first.
but it's also already
They're saying they're implementing UNDRIP.
in the Senate, yeah.
So we'll see. So these guys coming here, they're gonna see Bev with their permit. So that's gonna affect their permit, the UNDRIP,
Right.
because it's respecting the structures of the Gitxsan and of the Indigenous and the laws of the Indigenous and our tenure. It even says in UNDRIP, the tenure, the Indigenous tenure, eh? So we'll see.
It happens.
It's good news, eh? It's good news.
BC is the first in Canada, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I only saw the newscast. I didn't know it was even in process. I only saw the, I read a lot of newspapers on my little phone. So, good.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, you want to have lunch and then?
Yes,
Lunch isn't, I don't think lunch is here quite yet, but we could, Monique and Monique could bless the food.
Okay. Bow our heads, bless the food and expect lots. Even gaat ik het morgen, wil je eerst zijn wen zaten, wil je wen geraad ze beneden en de Lewis for the society. Even de en success van de chaos weer. So it is quick in their minds. To me, sim get lit for it. Well, which one next to go from the get good name is name and I'm good. Hooks and high going out. I'm mountain price next to me.